Every human dreams, while humanity dreams together. And since the machine age of the early 1900s, we have dreamed of what our future might hold in regards to our technology. Those dreams have distilled themselves into well-known aesthetic eras.
Modern technology has supplied the American stylist with new materials of intriguing lightness and great strength.
From futurism to retrofuturism, and the space age aesthetic of the 50s and 60s, all the way up to the 1980s, where the prevailing presence of computers led us to what's since been identified as the vaporwave or outrun aesthetic, a sort of hyper-real investigation concerning the future of this new technology. Our fascination with the future has also led to some more skeptical takes on tech, which we find in the cyberpunk trends that led us into the 90s. An era capitalized by the grunge and Y2K aesthetic, where we went from the moody colors and tones of the alternative scene to the frosted tips and glossy lips of pop icons, boy bands, and nu metal. Technology during this time was booming, and the Y2K aesthetic was comprised of many different styles. The grungy, matrix-type metallic and chrome, to the colorful and transparent computers and game consoles of the late 90s and early 2000s. Devices that invited consumers to share in the wonder of a new technical age. Humanity was experiencing the first stage of the internet, dubbed Web 1.0, also known as the read-only web, comprised of static pages and hyperlinks. A small number of people creating content for the masses, like a giant digital encyclopedia. This version of the internet lasted just past the year 2000, when Web 2.0 would arrive, tempting users not to just use the web, but to be a part of it. The era of high definition and social networks was incoming, and with every big leap forward, our vision of the future was set to change. And thus we enter possibly the most hopeful time in futurist aesthetic design. One where technology wouldn't be its own fantasy or character in our lives, but would rather smoothly integrate itself into our world, almost as if a part of nature itself. The aesthetic was dubbed Frutiger Aero. Now, if you lived through the 2000s and don't recall that term, then don't be alarmed. It didn't exist until 2017 when it was coined by a woman named Sophie Lee of the Consumer Aesthetics Research Institute. It's a combination of the two defining characteristics of the aesthetic: the Frutiger family of fonts developed by Adrian Frutiger, and Windows Aero, the design language introduced in the Windows Vista operating system. But what is Frutiger Aero? Some hallmarks of the aesthetic include tropical fish, grass and oceans, bubbles and orbs, glossy glass, futuristic cityscapes, butterflies and birds, bokeh photography, and the list goes on. To summarize, the aesthetic was curvy, soft, natural and clean, with a heavy use of skeuomorphism, a design process in which virtual objects are made to resemble their real-life counterparts, such as Instagram's old logo looking more like an actual camera compared to the modern flat design of today. Skeuomorphism was used as a way to ease consumers into usage, making technology feel more practical and understandable as it inevitably pushed its way into everyday life. After all, this was the era of Web 2.0, and technology was becoming unavoidable, even for those who were uninterested. During the 2000s, cell phones became a must-have just to get by in the world. Social media went from, hey, look at my cute little MySpace page, to read my every thought, take a look at my every action. And I'm not criticizing this at all. Believe me, I played my part as well. We all have. And throughout this rapid change of lifestyle, it was Frutiger Aero that helped ease us into this new reality. This was the future, and it was normal. You could recognize it. It wasn't the Jetsons, it wasn't Blade Runner, and we weren't going to be living in cyberspace. In the future, the grass would still grow, the fish would swim in the crystal clear waters of the Caribbean, bubbles would float up to a clear blue sky, and you would buy the new iPhone every year. And hey, what's wrong with that? Absolutely nothing. In the past couple years, Frutiger Aero has become a big topic online. It has its own Reddit page, countless videos on YouTube, and articles are written about the subject. It's become a source of nostalgia for so many people that lived through that era. And it's no wonder, as it was found nearly everywhere back in those days. In office spaces, architecture, video games, cell phones, editing apps, even soap bottles made of plastic love to show off those clean ocean vibes. Take a look at the PS2 home screen. Although it's very nostalgic for me, it's not very inviting, is it? Now look at the PlayStation 3. Ah yes, a breath of fresh air. Fire up your Xbox 360. See that cute little avatar? That's you. You're a part of this now. Frutiger Aero was so widespread that it's almost hard to believe how quickly it disappeared. And so as our eyes blur from the tears of nostalgia, we must ask ourselves, what happened? Most would agree the aesthetic disappeared around 2013, as companies opted for a more flat design. The integration of flat design had been seen earlier in what was known as Frutiger Metro, the flat version of Aero. Perhaps the best example being the old iPod commercials. The skeuomorphism we talked about earlier was traded out, and icons such as YouTube switched from a TV to a play button, as if to tell users, you know what you're doing. We don't have to keep holding your hand. Look at Windows 7 compared to Windows 8, and then Windows 10. The bright sunny days had faded away. We no longer needed to dream of the future of technology. It was already here. We already bought in. And so that leads me to my final point of this video, which was not to explain every nuance of Frutiger Aero, as there are other videos that have already done that, but instead to point out that unlike the other dominant tech aesthetics of the past that were rooted in real-world advancements, such as how the space age aesthetic related to the very real space race of the time, or how the cyberspace aesthetic was born in the imagination of authors like William Gibson of Neuromancer. Even Y2K was seemingly yielded out of a genuine excitement of a new era of computing. Frutiger Aero, on the other hand, was more like a Trojan horse, a widespread marketing ploy to sell the new world to the old world. Make no mistake, I'm not alluding to some grand conspiracy here, but just pointing out the intent, at least from my point of view. After all, the future is now. And where's the utopia we were all promised? Where's the fun of it all? The only thing we seem to do is complain. Complaints about what social media has done to people, what cell phones have done to people, what technology has done to our society. Those sprawling green fields are still empty. The children are all at home. It's no wonder we have nostalgia. The world has never moved so fast as it has in the last 100 years, and we've kept guessing where it might go, never quite landing on the truth. We were born into fantasy and forced to grow into reality. And in this, topics like Frutiger Aero are so fascinating. They speak to a cultural hypnosis, an unintentional or maybe very intentional set of ideals, a vision that we all shared subconsciously. And here we are years later, together, reminiscing, yearning for something that never existed. In the beginning of this video, I said that every human dreams while humanity dreams together. And that sounds really nice. But the truth is, eventually, you have to wake up.